Today I'm going to show you how to patch up a hole in pants. I am specifically focusing on stretchy leggings today. You will need thread, needle, scissors. It helps to have a needle threader or a little slip of paper, and you'll need some sort of fabric to do your patch. I like to use stretchy old t-shirts. So if I have an old t-shirt with holes in it, I tend to save those and then cut them up. You could also even use part of an old sock and use that as your patch. But you want your fabric to kind of match whatever you're doing. So if it's stretchy clothing, then you want stretchy fabric. It really doesn't matter if it's the same color or not, especially if you wanted to make a fun shape for your patch. So I've already got my shape cut out. I actually folded this in half to cut it so that it would be symmetrical on both sides. And I'm going to use my needle tin, and I'm going to slide that inside so that my hole is lifted up off the back side of the legs. And then I'm going to position the patch wherever I want it to be on that hole. Make sure that the hole is kind of in the middle. If you have any little frayed edges like this, you can trim those off first. And then I'm going to pin my patch in place. You could use safety pins, you could use straight pins. You could possibly just hold it in place, but it really is going to make it easier if you pin it down first. So I'm going to pin that in place, keeping the pins kind of towards the middle. That way I can stitch around the outside edge. Okay, once it's pinned and I like the location of the patch, I'm going to go ahead and thread my needle. I cut a longer length of thread, and to use one of these needle threaders, you are going to take the threader and put it through the eye of the needle, and I'm going to hold that in one hand, and then in my other hand, I'm going to poke the thread through the opening of the eye of the needle, leave a little tail hanging. Then I am going to pull the needle threader through the eye of the needle, and that pulls the thread through. I'm going to set this down, and for this project I am actually going to make my thread double thick so that my stitches are a little stronger. So double thick means that I am going to take my thread ends and line them both up together. So you're going to need a longer piece of thread than you normally would, because then the entire length of the thread is doubled up. So then down here at this end, I'm going to tie a knot, and I'm ready to start stitching on my patch. And once my needle is threaded, I'm going to use what's called a whip stitch to sew this on, and that's the reason why I put the object inside the pant leg, so that I wouldn't accidentally sew the leg together. So I'm going to start at one spot, and I'm going to catch the fabric underneath the patch, and then I'm going to make sure my needle goes through the patch, and I'm going to pull this tight all the way to the knot. And if you don't want your knot to show, make sure that you have it tucked underneath the patch. And now we're going to follow the same pattern. We're going to go under every single time we stitch. And then every single time I'm going to pull that tight. We don't want to pull it too tight, otherwise your fabric's going to start to get a little bit wrinkly there. So again, under, I'm making sure I'm sewing it to the leg and the patch. Pulling it tight every single time. So you'll start to get little lines, and that will go all the way around your patch. Once you start to run out of thread, or when you are totally done stitching your patch, you are going to tie off your needle so that you can cut it. So I like to leave about a hand's length at the most. So I'm going to find the last stitch, and I'm going to slide my needle through that stitch, and that makes a loop. Before I pull it all the way tight, I'm going to come around behind and through the loop, and I'm going to pull it tight. I'm going to do that one more time to make sure my knot is strong enough. So again, loop it behind the closest stitch, catch that loop with your finger, loop your needle around behind and through, and then pull that tight. That way you can cut the thread just above that knot, so cut it very carefully. And now I'm ready to thread my needle and continue sewing, or I'm also done sewing on my patch.